right. We're rolling, man.
Is it on? Is it going?
Yep,
Oh,
we're good.
shit.
So
what up?
Hopefully we don't mumble too much.
What's up?
Yeah, this is episode 1, maybe out of 1, hopefully out of more, but
Hell yeah.
we're just gonna see how this goes. My name is Matt.
My name is Matthew.
Okay, you want to go by that? I'm gonna call you Matt.
No, we'll do Matthew and Matt, just
Okay.
to differentiate.
Yeah, I don't know if we actually sound completely alike or not, so this will be good. We'll just be referring to each other by the same name, because I'm gonna forget that. Maybe, I don't know, I'll call you Matthew, I guess.
Let's do Matthew.
All right, so this podcast is kind of be about, if we end up doing more episodes, the idea of this is just structuring each episode around, like, primarily one specific topic relating to movies, and it can range from a lot of different, like, parts of film. It could be film production, like criticism, narratives, anything like that. The first one we're going to focus on for this episode is called the Intentional Fallacy, and a definition that I'm just looking up on Google is, or their definition is just the idea that it is incorrect, or it is a fallacy to base any meaning or derive. Sorry, let me reset that. The idea of the intentional fallacy is that it is wrong to think that the only significant meaning that you can derive from a movie is that which the director specifically intended. The idea of intentional fallacy is something that happens in, like, literature or art in general, but in the case of movies, it's just the idea that the only meanings that are significant in a film or a TV show are what were actually intended by the director of the film or the show. Anything to say thus far?
Let's get going.
All right. So there's a video that you could find on YouTube that we'll probably link in the description, because I don't actually have it pulled up, but it's a good video that kind of describes what the intentional fallacy means in relation to, like, paintings, or that's what they use to kind of describe what it means. The idea is that it's wrong to just assume that the only significance you could find in any sort of film is what people specifically intended. It could, like, in actuality, meaning could be kind of organically derived from a film based on, like, different people involved. It seems like, based on looking this up a lot, like, there's different angles people take in regards to this idea. One is that if you're assuming that the only significant meaning is what the director intended, then you're ignoring the fact that there's other people in the production crew, such as, like, you know, the actual, like cinematographers or editors, the actors, even the writers for the movie. You're, in an objective sense, you're assuming that their meaning that they bring to the movie is not necessarily significant. And that is a worthy argument, because everybody who's involved in a movie has a different upbringing. They have different background and different experiences, so they all have different perspectives, potentially on the whatever specific theme is being covered in the movie. Another idea is that you can just, in general, find any sort of meaning in a piece of work because it just relates to what you enjoy about it. The video that we mentioned earlier mentions, in relation to art, that it would seem strange that you'd feel like you could only enjoy, like, a painting in a specific way, and that's, like, specifically what the artist intended you to think of it. But then they made an analogy where they were talking about, like, a dessert at a restaurant. You probably enjoy how it tastes just based on your taste, not necessarily what you think the chef meant you to feel by eating this. I'll be honest, I think I'm personally kind of on the fence still about this, so I guess I would kind of fall in the lines with the actual fallacy. I think when it comes to like, what meaning is significant that you could pull from a movie, I feel like it's important to focus on what the director intended, because that kind of gives you an idea of what their thinking is in general. Like, their train of thought or their values would kind of show through in the meaning that they want to portray in a movie, and that information is important. Now, looking into it more and trying to, you know, also consider the different kind of walks of life that the production crew come from, that's a really interesting argument that I think can kind of acquiesce with the idea that they're like what the director intended is like what's important, because if anybody else in production crew intended some meaning to be shown through whatever they contribute to the film, then the fact that it's just something that they intended you to derive from the movie or the TV show is also significant, because it gives you insight into like what their values are and their perspective is. It was like a really roundabout way of explaining all of that. Like, what do you think, Matt? Like I said, I'm still kind of torn between like just letting anybody like find any meaning from anything versus like specifically focusing on like what was intended through the work.
Yeah, no, I'm in between both sides of the fence too as well. Cause like when you first go to a movie, like you don't really know what to expect. Like you're not going into a movie expecting like to like feel this certain experience from this director. Cause when you first go, I mean, yeah, you do have a certain idea what the movie's gonna be about based like on the trailer, but it's just a trailer. It's not gonna give you like all the information. But you know, when you go into a movie, you don't like go in, you know, like expecting to, you know, grasp the idea what the director's trying to intend.
Mm-hmm.
So you just kind of like go off what you know you're feeling that day. Like for example, like let's say you go to a movie and you just had a bad day. You know, like you lost your job or just had a bad day. That will like impact the way you see the movie. Like to one person, the way you'll see the movie is like it might be a comedy to one person, it might be tragedy to another person.
Mm-hmm.
But also like you know for the film crew as well, like you know everyone has like different walk of life. Like an actor, cinematographer, they may have different ideas of what the director's intention is, but at the end of the day, it's the director's like final say of what goes through or not. So the actors, you know, the producers, the writers, the cinematographers, they know what they're getting themselves into, because at the end of the day, it's the director who gets the final say what's going to be the movie's to be about.
Mm-hmm.
Makes any sense?
Yeah. This is also like an interesting thing to kind of discuss in a practical sense as far as like how it actually applies to when people watch movies or shows, because I think the vast majority of people don't really look into the production of things. Like I think the general public kind of like takes it in like at face value, like the extent to which they know about the production or the film is what the film is when they watch it, or like what the TV show is when they watch it. So I think a lot of times, you know, learning what was actually intended like thematically in different like points in the movie or the show. I'm just gonna stick to specifically movies in this case, because it's like movies and shows are at this point kind of produced pretty much the same way, so
Yeah.
they would probably convey meaning with the same amount of significance, no matter like what they are about. I think in general people probably wouldn't go out of their way a lot of times to try and look up any of these things. So like whatever meaning they derive from the movies is probably based on just like what they took from it
Yeah.
during the viewing. So I have a couple bits of like information that kind of relate to the different sides of this argument. One example, and this is probably my favorite one. One of my favorite movies of all time is Deer Hunter. It's Michael Cimino from 1978, I think.
78.
And if you're not familiar with it, it's a anti-war movie essentially about Vietnam, and a big element in the movie is Russian roulette, just to kind of give you an idea of what's in the movie. And I'm not going to go into like real specifics about like what the film is meant to be about, but I'm more so going to talk about like how different elements of the production led the film to potentially be perceived to be about different things. So Michael Cimino, the director, this is also interesting, like worth kind of looking into. If you just want to look at the Wikipedia article for this, a lot of the citations are for articles and things that you probably have to pay for. So if you happen to have like memberships to things like JSTOR or other, like you can easily buy like Google Books and stuff, you could probably look into them more and get the direct source. But I tend to trust a lot of the information in like the Wikipedia article, because it's pretty mundane, so I can't imagine somebody would probably mess with any of the information. But seemingly the production on this was like a nightmare. Not necessarily
Was it really?
Yeah, not necessarily getting the film done, but
Well, I know Cimino was like very like an anal director, because he was very like he was a perfectionist. He wanted like everything to be like as authentic as possible, so he was spending a lot of money on like production and shit.
yeah. If you go into the article and you look at the production, like especially the script, there's like it's like he said she said as far as who actually like had like whatever amount of effect on the final script, and everybody's got a different side of the story. Seemingly nobody got along with Michael Cimino. Is it Cimino or Camino?
It's Chimino.
It's Cimino. Okay, Michael Cimino.
He's a great director, though.
Yeah. Oh no, he is. Like I said, I love this movie. But a specific example that kind of relates to the intentional fallacy is Meryl Streep's character. So she was cast as the girlfriend because she wanted to stay on set with John Cazale because he was suffering from lung cancer, I think, at the time.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah, he was a good actor, man. So she was cast as this role that was basically listed as vague stock girlfriend. This is according to the Wikipedia article. And she accepted the role in order to remain on set for the duration of filming with John Cazale. And later on in the production, when she took the role, Michael Cimino essentially told her that she should probably just write her own lines for the character, because he didn't expect the character to be like a big part of the movie.
Uh-huh.
And I think without her character being the way it was, it probably would have been more about, more specifically like about people could probably get from the movie that it was about the relationship between like Mike and Nick, Robert De Niro and Christopher Walken respectively, and like their relationship throughout the whole thing. But having Meryl Streep's character in there ultimately kind of helped it to be a stronger war film, because I think it gave you a connection between like people who were in the war and how it directly affected people that they cared about and cared about them.
Yeah, like the home life.
Yeah, how it directly affected the home life. And you only really get that perspective because of the fact that Meryl Streep like took it upon herself to really flesh out that character and make it like a really breathing character in the movie. And I think her character is like one of the best aspects of that movie. And honestly, I feel like if her character wasn't that fleshed out, the movie probably wouldn't have been that impactful. So in that way, if you specifically looked at what Cimino may have intended with the movie, then you'd be completely disregarding Meryl Streep's contributions to the movie. But that's also interesting because unless you looked that up, you probably wouldn't be aware of the fact that she had that particular contribution to the movie. You probably would have assumed that what her character is scripted to be in the movie is what was originally written in the script.
Yeah.
Right? So that's where it's interesting. Like, in some cases, knowing what the director intends requires you to like go out of your way to look up more information. So in a practical sense, it's sort of hard to apply. We were talking about just like people on the tech crew that could kind of affect how a movie is perceived, and you brought up Roger Deakins.
Yeah.
And how he has like a lot of control over his sets.
Yeah.
Do you have any like specifics? Because I have one for like Blade Runner 2049. Like the studio that was producing the film wanted them to have like 9 cameras apparently to get like all the shots, and I guess Deakins was like steadfast on recording with like primarily one camera.
Yeah.
Apparently he wants to have like total autonomy over what he shoots. Do you know other like cameramen that probably do? I imagine like Lubeski would probably do that because it's so specific to his style. Like you can tell if it's a movie that's shot by him.
I feel like Lubeski, like movies like Revenant, Birdman. He shot Birdman. Yeah, he did shoot Birdman.
Yeah.
But probably like Robert Richardson. He's like Tarantino's go-to guy.
Okay.
Probably him. And that's all I could think of right now. Like big, like, or maybe Hoyt. What's his name? Hoyt Vantanama. He's shot Christopher Nolan's recent movies like Tenet, Dunkirk, Interstellar.
Okay.
Like one camera kind of operation. But I know Roger Deakins, though, like he's like, you know, probably the best and most well known and respected cinematographer out right now. And anyone like trusts him with the way he shoots, so I feel like he would have like a lot of power.
Yeah.
And like what should be shot in a certain way. So I think him.
Do you think that's like something that the general population like would reasonably know?
No, I don't think. I think like mainly like moviegoers, like, you know, like very like, you know, guys who are like into movies, people into movies who like know about that. But like the average moviegoer wouldn't like really care about that. They just want to go in and just watch the movie and go out. They really don't think about it that often. Or I don't know.
Well, no. Do you think that's like that pretty much leads into one of the questions I had for you. And that's, do you prefer to watch films with any prior knowledge going in, or you prefer to watch them blind? And when I say knowledge, you can refer to like looking up anything about the movie.
Like how much
beyond the trailer. Trailer is still considered blind, I think.
blind? I'd rather go blind.
Yeah.
Cause I feel like when you go in like knowing a lot about the movie, like with expectations,
Yeah.
and you come out of the theater, you're like, damn, like this could have been better. Like you just think about it. You just think too much about it.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you go in blind, like it's just unexpected things happen. I don't know how to say. It's like, I mean, I do believe it's better to go in blind. Like some of the best experiences I've had in a movie theater are just like watching a trailer and just like not watching anything else about it. It's just the beauty of just not knowing what to expect, just being surprised.
Yeah.
I think just the beauty of just being surprised is just great, better.
That's interesting, because I'm not entirely sure which I prefer personally. Like I can think of a lot of movies that I've thoroughly enjoyed with both experiences.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, I think a lot of the ones that I've thoroughly enjoyed without a lot of knowledge are ones that were just a little more obscure and there wasn't a lot of information out about them. Like one of the most recent ones that I watched in like the last year was a movie called Lake Mungo, and that's like a really low-key Australian horror movie.
Yeah.
And it's so low-key, there's like really not a lot of information out there about it. And in that regard, I was thoroughly enthralled by that. But I guess the ones that I tend to specifically look into are probably from directors that I know I like.
Yeah.
Like I really like Scorsese is my favorite director, Martin Scorsese. So generally, whenever he's making a movie, I'll look into it as much as I can because I just want to absorb all of the try and infer as much of the experience of the production as I can. I guess I'll get that out there. So when I watch movies, I'm more into the technical aspects as opposed to, not necessarily in compared to you, but as opposed to the narrative sense, the storytelling and stuff. I'm more into the technical aspect of how you can use lighting and shot framing and camera movements and stuff to kind of convey not necessarily meaning, but tell the story in that way.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily saying I don't care if the script, if the screenplay is good or not. But I just really like how you can use other kind of non-character elements into either diegetic or non-diegetic elements to the movie that kind of help to tell the story.
So you reading about the technical aspects, the camera stuff, and you read about the technical stuff before the movie, and then you watch the movie to see how that was incorporated into the movie, kind of thing. That makes any sense?
Yeah, the thing is that there's not that great extent of the information this leak doesn't always tell you that much.
Yeah.
But I do try and look up as much as I can about all of it. I guess realistically, if you're talking about newer movies, the thing the majority of the movies that I've watched or that I watch are not new movies because I always end up finding movies that have come out that I really want to watch, and I find movies that have already come out that I want to watch just at a greater rate than newer movies that are coming out, right?
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of my experience in looking up background information for the production and stuff for the movies is largely in the case of movies that already exist, so that's that information would be out there. But yeah, when it comes to newer movies, I guess now that I think about it, I probably primarily or maybe even exclusively do it for directors that I specifically like, because I like to watch movies with the director's kind of style in my brain, so I can kind of pick out their style. I guess my favorite type of movies is one where you can the director's style is really apparent.
Yeah.
Now, I don't necessarily always like movies where the director's style is apparent, but I predominantly like them. I think there are some directors that I know have a specific style that I think sometimes have pointless stylistic elements in their movies. I'm not gonna say any names specifically. Steven Soderbergh.
Michael Bay.
Yeah. Where the stylistic elements of the movie are flashy, but they don't actually contribute to the storytelling at all. Whereas some of my favorite directors, I mentioned Scorsese or Denis Villeneuve or the Coen brothers, they all have really apparent styles.
Yeah.
this so another question kind of leading off from the
I was gonna
first.
say real
Yeah.
quick, like when I watch movies, like
Yeah.
I try to go in like not knowing as much as possible. Like for example, like Tenet, which is hopefully coming out soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't get pushed back, but if it is, it's whatever. But like I'm just trying my best not to like watch anything of it. I mean, I've watched the trailers,
Yeah.
but I'm not trying to read up about it or go on the actual website of the movie. But like when I go to a movie though, like I try to go in not knowing as much as possible, just experience the movie itself, just just feel it, just experience it.
Yeah.
And then I'll watch it a second time to kind of vision, kind of like just look at the techno aspects of it. Second time around, just kind of like look at it more in detail versus like the first time, kind of like just experience, just soaking it all in. Then the second time, just like kind of like just analyzing it more.
Yeah.
On a film perspective, if that makes any sense. But
do you watch back movies?
Back movies?
Like, do you? Sorry, I don't know if you caught that on the microphone. Do you ever find yourself watching a movie blind and then you like look up stuff and then watch it again soon after to like watch it with like that newer information in mind?
Yeah, I do that a lot. Like after I watch a movie for the first time, then I watch like the behind the scenes stuff on like YouTube or something. Like read interviews about like the process of the movie.
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
I just try to go in as blind as possible, just to have a big surprising experience, not to go in with expectations. Because when I expect things from movies,
Yeah.
that's when I get most disappointed. So like for example, last year I saw Parasite. Like I heard it like I heard there was a lot of buzz about it, but I didn't know what it was actually about at all. So I just went in like blind.
Yeah.
And it was a great movie, great experience. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. I guess to the extent to which I look up information is like everything up to story elements, like any sort of story elements that are like I don't really give a shit about like speculation as far as what the movie's going to be about. Like I don't really look up any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But one thing I can specifically think of, I guess, is like when Christopher Nolan made Inception, I didn't end up seeing it in theaters, so like a lot of information had already come out by the time I got around to see it. But I looked up a bunch of like the technical aspects of the movie, and I learned about like how they shot the hotel hallway scene.
Oh yeah.
Like it was an actual practical thing they just rotated, and like when I watched the movie, like I was like mind blown because I was just blown away. Like the scene was cool, but I was blown away by how smoothly it worked. Like how they managed to make that like suspend reality that well, considering it was like a practical effect like that. I'm trying to think of other instances like that though. Yeah, I guess it is predominantly just for like directors that I like because I'm already going in expecting to like see their style.
Or like Birdman, like it was
I looked up a lot about Birdman.
It was being sold to like as being one big long take, but obviously there's cuts between. But like you go in knowing that like there's like a whole bunch of long takes, so you kind of like appreciate it more.
Yeah.
When you read about that stuff before you watch the movie, sometimes. But
how many people do you think saw that?
Birdman?
And how many? Well, I hope a lot of people see Birdman because it's a really good movie, I think. But how many people do you think saw that and didn't know that was like I don't want to say gimmick, but like that was like a kind of a revolutionary technique used in the movie, like of storytelling, because like it is a lot of cuts. Supposedly you can, if you like are really really acutely paying attention, you can see like that there's like many cuts, but it is so seamlessly done.
Yeah.
How many people went in and didn't have any had no like knowledge beforehand that was like something that they did in the making of the movie?
I think not that many, but I feel like as they were watching the movie, they're kind of like getting the idea like
it probably feels strange, I would imagine, right?
Like
For
there's
somebody,
no cuts.
Yeah. Like
a camera just following someone.
Yeah, because there's movies that I've seen or shows that I've seen where like I eventually came to a point where I was like, eventually at some point during the long take I was like, shit, this hasn't cut in a long time. like I do realize that in things I wasn't fully aware of. But
do you think the long take could be a little pretentious at times, like the director's trying to like just I don't know, just trying to show off, just like, hey, look at me, I'm doing a long take.
Absolutely.
It means nothing at times, but like
I think
some directors do a good job of like actually like making it convey something, whereas some just do it just to like just show like, hey, look at me, I'm doing a long take.
Yeah, and that's an interesting like point of conversation too. There's a YouTube channel that I think most people, if anybody comes across this, probably most people are familiar with Every Frame of Painting. Have you ever watched those?
Yeah, they got some good stuff there.
Yeah, he did the Spielberg long take episode, and it made me realize like I didn't actually even notice that there were that. Hey, Office Max is closing. Sorry, we're in a car.
Right?
yeah. I didn't even realize like how many times he actually does long takes. Like in Jaws, like that scene where they're on the, it's like the little ferry thing. What is that called? It's a ferry, I guess.
Yeah, it's a ferry.
Yeah, like that shot doesn't cut for like I don't know, almost 2 minutes, but you don't really notice because like the background's moving all the time, right?
Yeah.
I do think that you can be obvious with the long takes and not be pretentious, but I think you could also be obvious with the long takes and also be pretentious. I don't know if you can be not obvious with them and not be pretentious, because I think the idea is you're trying to have an invisible style.
Yeah.
Which, like, if you're going for that and the long takes aren't obvious, then I don't think that's, like, really even something in discussion. But I do think, I'll be honest, I saw 1917 last year, and probably one of the few people that didn't love the movie. Again, knowing that it was actually like a bunch of cuts is almost more impressive to me than the fact it was like a bunch of uninterrupted takes, because that movie, again, flows seamlessly.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of great moments in that movie, but I think there were a lot of points that felt like they ended up being sort of overly long because they had to preserve the technique of keeping it feeling like a one interrupted take.
Mm-hmm.
I do think one of the, like, just kind of unrelated, I do love how long takes like that can give you like a sense of like distance covered or something like that. Like it really makes it easy to like keep a point of reference in the space of the movie. But I do think, like in the case of 1917, I think there were a couple takes in there that I think were like just long shot, like not long shots, but long takes that there was nothing going on for an unnecessary amount of time, I think. Going back, well, what did you think about that movie, by the way? I'm curious. I don't think I've ever really asked you.
No, I really liked it. I really liked it a lot.
Well, I think the acting was amazing.
Great acting. I don't know what that kid's name is, but
dude, he crushed that movie. Like he was so good in that.
It's just like that'd be like that's like a dream role for like any actor just trying to like just carry a movie like that. Like just going through so many emotions from like sadness, anger, happiness.
Yeah.
All in one movie. Well, it was very well directed. Obviously, well shot by the famous Roger Deakins.
Yes. He's a cinematographer. I feel like, I'll be honest. You brought up Dunkirk. Until you mentioned the cinematographer, I actually thought that was Deakins who shot that.
Who, Dunkirk?
Yeah.
No, what's his name? Hoyt Van Tam.
Let me look it over real quick. I got my laptop out.
I know he's a European. But he shot her as well.
And then
he's coming up in the world.
I'm gonna hit you with a follow-up question. We'll try and kind of get a little bit back to this topic, because we have a few more kind of touch points I think are really interesting bits of information. The whole idea with this podcast, I guess we'll kind of clarify, is like neither one of us are, well, you know, I'm not gonna say for you, Matt, because I think you're super knowledgeable on like a lot of film stuff. So I would say you're much more likely to be like an expert on any of the topics that we would cover than I would be.
No, I think you are, man.
But I think the whole idea is like we want to just get like a lot of information out there about the topic to kind of give you an idea of what the topic is about, so that you can kind of respond with your own ideas about said topic, and we could maybe do some sort of follow-up and like respond to some of the reactions. Hoyt van Hoytma.
Oh
wow, you were very close. Damn, that's a pretty cool name. Yeah, I actually thought that was Roger Deakins. It was like I thought I think I don't remember who I thought it was, but when I saw Road to Perdition, which is another Sam Mendes movie,
that's a great movie.
I thought that was shot by a different guy. That
was it Deakins who shot that?
No. I think he won an Oscar. I think that was his last movie he shot. Let me just double check.
Who, the guy that shot that movie?
Yeah, I really like that movie though. It was shot by Conrad Hall.
Conrad Hall.
Yeah, and he did American Beauty as well. That was the other one I was thinking of. So yeah, I guess he worked with Sam Mendes then for a little while. Let me hit you with another follow-up question. Do you think knowledge of the production can add meaning that you could find from scenes or production overall that couldn't be inferred otherwise? That's kind of a weird question, so I can clarify if you want.
Yeah, clarify.
Like, do you think knowledge of knowing like how logistically difficult it was to shoot a certain moment of a movie could affect how you feel about that part of the story in the movie if you know how hard it was to shoot? I guess a better example would be like if a movie had an original idea to shoot a movie in a certain, like to shoot a scene in a certain way, and they had to change it for like budget concerns, and it is what it is now. Do you think knowledge of that could kind of affect how you perceive like that scene's like impact on the overall theme or story in the movie? If you think like, oh well, like I guess they wanted it to be shot this way, so I'm gonna analyze the scene with that in mind. Like, try and like reimagine what the scene would have been and see how it would have affected you that way, or do you just take it like, do you think you just take it as at face value?
I just take it as face value because at the end of the day, like I feel like the director kind of knows what they're doing at the end of the day. Like, they know what's best for themselves and the crew and the movie, just the story in general. Like, they know what's best for the story.
Yeah.
So I just go in just trusting and believing that what the director puts on screen was the best idea that they could have like came up with.
I got you.
But I mean, I would think about like maybe like if they shot it this way, like, or maybe it would be different. But no, I just go in just like not really thinking about that in my mind because I just believe at the end of the day, like whatever the director put in a screen is what he truly meant to be on screen. Like even whatever happened on set, like at the end of the day, whatever happens, kind of thing. Like, you know, so just go in just believing the director intended it to be that way. Whatever happened on set, you know.
That makes sense because I was thinking I guess probably if they had to like make sacrifices and like cut certain things to make the movie exist, they'd probably cut them with the confidence that the rest of the movie would be able to like effectively articulate what they wanted to say anyways. Like they cut some scenes to make sure they preserve others or something like that. One thing that's kind of interesting about that is, so Martin Scorsese, his first movie was Who's That Knocking at My Door, and that was him kind of experimenting with his own style because it was really like his own production. It was a pretty low budget movie. It was about it was like maybe $60,000, I think. And that's like super kinetically shot. It's like kind of hand cam. Like if you were to look at Mean Streets is like Who's That Knocking at My Door with like the budget they actually wanted to have. But in between those two movies, he made a movie called Boxcar Bertha. And that was produced by Roger Corman, who's like everybody calls like the king of the B movies. Honestly, if you look, Roger Corman's an interesting guy. I'm not sure how many movies he personally directed. I think he only directed a few, but he's produced so many like kind of cult classic movies from like the 70s, like probably 50s through the 80s actually. And so I think a lot of people credit him with like giving some like a fair amount of like, I don't know if it's like primarily revisionist or revivalist filmmakers their start, like giving them an opportunity to make films. But he's helped out among like Scorsese among others to kind of get their foot in the door with like bigger budgets. But Corman was kind of like vaguely exploitative with like his material in his movies. So there was like, I guess if you look at like the production and stuff of like production history of Boxcar Bertha, it's like a crime movie, but then there's a lot of like random bits where there's like large amounts of nudity or like extended scenes of nudity and stuff, and I think that was just like a requirement that Corman had in his movies, like a production requirement for the people making the movies.
Oh really?
Because you could tell in the movie, like there's bits where it's like, okay, this is definitely, you could tell in the movie there's scenes, this is definitely Scorsese telling the movie that he wants, and it's like they're like interspersed with these like random scenes that are pretty obviously things that Corman had as like a condition for them to direct.
Oh damn.
And actually when Mean Streets came around, that was like Scorsese's own script and he really wanted to get it produced, and he was so desperate to get it produced that he almost went with Corman again, who was going to give him more leeway with how he made the movie, but he wanted the cast to be all black so you can make it like a blaxploitation film.
Oh really?
Because it was in the early 70s, and ultimately a different studio different like financer picked it up and he was able to make the movie exactly how he wanted to. But yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of like, if you know going in that like the director was like constrained to certain things, then that could probably affect how you perceive the movie overall, because you could like detach those elements of the movie that are in there based on like production conditions and like analyze the movie without them. So we have a photo up here. This not related to that, but we have a photo on here. This is a just like I guess a shot on set of Spike Lee on. I'm pretty sure it's Jungle Fever. I hope it's Jungle Fever. I actually haven't seen Jungle Fever, but
Me neither.
there's an article, and the guy that wrote the article is Richard Noonan, and it's a great article to kind of like talk about like film philosophy, like conditions and things that are met to like kind of make philosophy in film, and it also talks about the intentional fallacy, which is why it's mentioned here. Jungle Fever, I think came out in 91. I'm just gonna double check real quick. This is so professional. I'm not gonna edit this out. Jungle.
Just keep it all in, keep it raw, man.
Yeah.
It's just our first one, so.
Yeah, 91. So, there's a character, Angie Tucci, in Jungle Fever. Pretty sure that's not the actress. I think that's the actress. I want to make sure I'm not.
Who's the actors or the character?
I think the character's name is
Tucci?
Yes, it is Angie. Yeah, Angie Tucci. So this is I'm basically quoting the article, which again I highly recommend, and I'll post this in the description. But it's like it's just like philosophy in film and discuss a lot of different things. So this movie, in the article, Richard Noonan says that Lee wanted Angie Tucci, Ciora's character, to be infatuated with Flipper Purify, who's played by Wesley Snipes, for the same superficial reason that Flipper was attracted to Angie: curiosity about the mythology surrounding interracial sexual difference. But Ciora performed the role differently. She thought that Angie's prior experience of economic and cultural deprivation in Bensonhurst explains why she would fall in love with a professional man like Flipper.
Mm-hmm.
So disregarding the actual meaning, the idea with this is like people probably felt the movie talked about different social touch points based on the fact that the actress took it upon herself to change the character.
Yeah. But Spike Lee wanted the character a different way.
Yeah. So this relates to like the idea of assuming that if you just consider what the director intended, then you'd probably kind of detach the fact that the actress took it upon herself to make the character this way.
Yeah.
And thus would kind of like maybe display a different meaning than would have been otherwise.
Did Spike let her like kind of like give her freedom with the character, or did he like just
like
control the way?
Well, it was kind of
the character.
It was a tenuous relationship between the two. Noonan mentions later this guy Thomas Wartenberg, his account of the disagreement between Spike Lee and Ciora. Production dynamics prevented Lee from exercising the conflict authority which directors usually enjoy. So he said, supposedly Spike Lee said, "I couldn't put a gun to her head and it was too far along in the shoot to fire her." So I guess he had to just compromise.
So you just let her do what she wanted.
I just let her do what she wanted. Yeah.
So do you think it's better if the director like has full control, or if it's better to like for the director to like listen to the actors, kind of like give them freedom of what they want to do with the character?
I don't know. I mean, I think if the go ahead and finish.
Yeah, that's the question.
No, I think if the director has full control, I think overall the production's gonna be a lot more coherent, right?
Yeah.
Like everything's gonna kind of gel together a little bit better because it's like it's fitting together all the elements that are specifically like in the director's mind.
Yeah.
And like otherwise, if it's like a bunch of different people kind of having like input from separate angles, there's like a chance that the editor will kind of like maybe not put together the scenes in the way that make that all gel, you know.
A good example I could think of is like, have you ever seen The Wrestler?
With Mickey Rourke?
Mickey Rourke.
I actually haven't, and I really need to.
So for those who haven't seen it, The Wrestler is a great movie, directed by Darren Aronofsky, starring Mickey Rourke. It's about a wrestler past his prime, trying to like relive his glory days, knowing he has heart condition. But before that movie was shot, though, Darren Aronofsky, like, he's not really like a sports kind of guy. He's a very like intelligent, very like, he's almost kind of like a nerd, you could say. You know, he's not really into sports. So when he wrote the script, there's a lot of scenes in the script where there's guys in the gym talking, you know, guys like who are wrestlers, you know, wrestlers, you know, just athletes in general in the gym, they talk a certain way. So when Mickey Rourke first read the script, he was kind of like disappointed with the script because Mickey Rourke, you know, he used to be a boxer himself. So he knows how guys talk in the gym since he used to be a boxer and obviously train a lot. So when we read the script, he was actually very disappointed. Like, he just like, hey, this is not how guys talk in the gym. They talk a different way. So it's like, hey, I'll do the movie if you let me like rewrite the script because I know how guys talk in the gym. So Darren Aronofsky kind of like gave him freedom to actually like change the whole script and like make it more believable because Mickey Rourke actually lived that life of working out, being in the gym, being around guys who were in that environment, so he knew how they communicated. So that's like one way I could think of like where like it's better for the actor sometimes to have creative freedom with the character, because sometimes like for example like there's Spike Lee example, like this character, she's a woman, and Spike Lee, I mean obviously he's a man, he's not a woman. And what's the actress's name in the movie?
The Jungle Fever.
Yeah.
It is Annabella Sciorra.
Annabella Sciorra is obviously she's a woman, so she knows how a woman thinks, how a woman behaves, so she would have better insight into that kind of character versus Spike Lee, who was a man. Man, we don't know how women think. We may think we know what they think, but at the end of the day, we don't know, because a woman knows how a woman thinks, not a man.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would be better suit for her to like kind of give her some creative freedom to like kind of dictate how the character should be portrayed. But sometimes, actually no. Well, it just depends on the role, actually.
Yeah.
Of, like, if the director should have more power, or what the actor or actress should do. But
well, here's I have a this is not one of the questions that I had planned, but I have another one for you. It seems like okay, do you know if Aronofsky was like really content with the changes that Rourke made? Like, did he come around and like agree with them and think that they were like beneficial to the production?
No, yeah, he was happy. They was cool. They actually kept the changes in the script.
Okay, because I feel like in that case almost it would be like that's the production crew, like or like different like aspects of the like people in different roles in the production coming together and having a contribution to the movie that ultimately like the director was swayed by.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind in that example, if we're still like trying to specifically talk about the intentional fallacy, like the changes that Rourke suggested that Aronofsky came around to would be then part of what the director intended. The Deer Hunter example that I gave earlier and the Jungle Fever example seem to be cases where like the directors weren't entirely content with everything.
Yeah.
Do you think if you were to kind of categorize the wrestler example and the Deer Hunter's like as far as like order of like agreeing to not agreeing, it's probably like of the three, it's like wrestler is most agreeing, then Deer Hunter, then Jungle Fever.
Yeah.
If you were to like categorize them, would you consider like I'm not entirely sure how to say this. Do you think it's significant when we're talking about the intentional fallacy if like the director ultimately was happy with the changes that they proposed versus not?
Like most compliant versus least compliant?
Yeah. Do you think that's like that matters when it comes to just like purely like philosophically talking about the intentional fallacy? It's an extremely like broad question. Because I think like
the director, obviously any director, when they make a movie, they want it. It's their movie. It's when a movie starts or begins, it says directed by, so it's their movie. So obviously they want the movie to be what they want it to be, because they're the one directing it. They're the one who came up with this. Well, they don't always come up with this, but it's their movie.
Yeah.
So obviously they want it their way. But like to categorize it from like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
The wrestler is the most compliant because it's a very character study driven movie.
Yeah.
So obviously the actor or actress in the movie is going to be like the driving force of it.
Yeah.
And then 2, probably.
I guess it probably matters too with the amount of like if an actor has a contribution like that, it probably matters like how predominantly they are a part of the production. Like Rourke is the central character through and through in The Wrestler. I can assume
he's like literally like in almost every shot.
Yeah.
In the movie.
Whereas like I haven't seen Jungle Fever, but I like if that's shared by 2 leads, then like Sciorra would be like half of this like half of the screen time. If she shares like literally half of the screen, then it's like her presence is like half of the whole between her and Snipes. And then like with Deer Hunter, it's like Streep is like maybe like the director is more compliant with that movie purely just because like Streep didn't have that big of a role no matter how much she fleshed out the character.
But I know that Michael Cimino, like he was like very anal about anything, so I'll probably like put second most compliant, maybe Jungle Fever.
Okay.
'Cause I could see like I don't know for sure, but I could see like Spike Lee being someone who like lets his actors improv a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of gives them a little bit of freedom, like Scorsese, because one of his biggest idols was Scorsese.
Yeah.
When he was first beginning, and he actually took a class because Scorsese used to teach at I think New York Film University. Some New York University. He would teach a film class, and Spike Lee was one of his students. So and that's his idol, So I could see him like letting his actors or actresses, give them a lot of freedom to improvise. So I'll probably like put that at number 2. Then number 3, probably Deer Hunter. Just knowing the fact that like Michael Cimino is like very controlling on set, like he's just very controlling in every aspect. So I could see like him being like the least compliant.
He might have just like not felt like her character was that threatening to his production or something.
Yeah.
Like based on like the other things you could see, because supposedly like all of the writers like. Nobody got on with Cimino during the production of that movie. Like, really, like the original writer, like he wrote the first draft and then just like I guess according to him, they just fired him later. Like
the writer?
Like he wrote the draft and then they just fired him. And like
did they end up using his draft or no?
No, they changed it a lot. Let me I gotta pull this up because this is really entertaining to me. Again, the movie's really good and. I don't know if... Wow, I pulled up Deer Hunting. That's not what I wanted.
Deer Hunt.
Like, I'll be honest. Since I learned all this stuff, it hasn't really changed how significant I think the movie is at what it's trying to say. To me, it's just like it's more like mythical of like a whole undertaking, knowing that there was this much tension. But yeah, you'll like this, Matt. I think. Let me see if I can find this. Screenplay. So Cimino says, according to Cimino, he would call. So again, this is according to Wikipedia, which you can take it with a grain of salt. But again, this information is so benign that I can't imagine that somebody would probably not benign, but like very mundane. I can't imagine people would like just make this stuff up. Yeah, and I tried to look up the sources, and again, I had to buy them, and I'm not going to do that. But according to Cimino, he would call Washburn while on the road. He was the original writer. While on the road for scouting locations and fed him notes on dialogue and story. Upon reviewing Washburn's draft, Cimino said, I came back and I read it and I just could not believe what I read. It was like it was written by somebody who was mentally deranged.
Oh my gosh.
Cimino confronted Washburn at the Sunset Marquee in LA about the draft, and Washburn supposedly replied that he couldn't take the pressure and had to go home. Cimino then fired him. Damn. Cimino later claimed to have written the entire screenplay himself. Washburn's response to Cimino's comments were, it's all nonsense. I didn't have a single drink the entire time I was working on the script.
Damn.
And then according to Washburn, he and Cimino spent 3 days together in LA at the Sunset Marquee hammering out the plot. The script eventually went through several drafts, evolving into a story with 3 distinct acts. Washburn did not interview any veterans to write The Deer Hunter nor do any research. I had a month, that was it. Damn. The clock was ticking, write the script, but all I had to do was watch TV. Those combat cameramen in Vietnam were out there in the field with the guys. When Washburn was finished, he said Cimino and Joanne Corelli, an associate producer on The Deer Hunter, who went on to produce 2 more of Cimino's later films, took him to dinner at a cheap restaurant off the strip, and he recalls, we finished, and Joan looks at me across the table and she says, well, Derek, it's fuck off time. I was fired. It was a classic case. You get a dummy, get him to write the thing that tell him to go fuck himself. Put your name on it and he'll go away. Yeah. That doesn't, like, the fact that there were so many people, like, you could even argue that even if the script was changed so significantly because Cimino didn't like the original draft, he probably didn't rewrite the whole thing. So
I'm pretty sure he kept, like, bits and pieces.
Right. So you can imagine, like, there's elements in the finalized script that are contributions from Washburn, right?
Yeah.
So...
Was he credited in the movie?
I don't actually know. God, that'd be messed up if he wasn't credited.
At least like story or something.
Oh no! All 4 writers, Cimino, Washburn, Garfinkel, and Redeker, received an Oscar nomination for Best Original Screenplay. So, a Writers Guild arbitration process awarded Washburn's sole screenplay by credit. So yeah, he was credited ultimately, but you can imagine, like, even if Cimino like didn't like his vision and wanted to change it a lot, inevitably it seems absurd that something wouldn't come through. Right, like some element of what he meant with the script would have to shine through, like Cimino's rewrites, right? So I don't know. Knowing that, I don't know if that changes like what kind of information you would take from the movie. Like if you would continue to just like consider like this is what the director wanted, this is how the scenes were shot, so I'm gonna like derive meaning from that. or maybe if you don't know that these things happened, you might specifically respond. I guess the reason why the intentional fallacies is important, because like if different people have different contributions to the whole, some people are ultimately going to respond more to things by different people, probably, if they can relate to that person more, like their life experiences and perspectives kind of align, you know. I mean, ultimately, besides the director, I think practically the rest of the cast and crew are going to have, by comparison, significantly less overall contribution to the film. Ultimately, like their perspectives are not going to be as strongly represented as the director, right?
No, yeah, of course, this is a director's movie. It's a director's.
Yeah.
You know, because film is a director's medium, and at the end of the day, like, you know, it's a director's movie, so not the director, the actors, the cameraman,
Yeah.
you know, the crew, their perspective technically is the director's perspective.
Yeah.
Because they're following their, you know, you know, their ideas, their.
I thought you were gonna sneeze there.
Shoot.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah,
No.
bless you.
No, but pretty much, you know, they're like, you know, they know what they're getting themselves into, you know, before they start the movie.
Yeah.
You know, they're agreeing to the director's, you know, story and message.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like you were saying, they have a less say of what the movie's going to be about.
Yeah. So here's another question for you. I'm just gonna say this as it's written, and if it's confusing, let me know. How do you weigh a film or show's execution on their intended themes or elements of the movie in their overall like quality? I can explain, like I can tell you like how I feel about it if you want to kind of like have an example of how that like what I'm trying to say there. I don't know if that makes sense.
Say it again.
How do you how much weight do you put on how well a film manages to convey the things that it's trying to convey when it comes to the overall quality of the film? Because I think personally that's what's like most important for me. Like I think a movie that's really great, I think first and foremost it has to be really well made. But at the same time, you get movies where like in retrospect they're like lauded versus when they came out they were kind of written off as like garbage.
Yeah.
You know. What do you think about that?
Like how overall like a movie that executes its theme?
Yeah, like do you judge a movie's quality based on like how well it manages to convey what it wants to convey?
I mean, yeah, there's one aspect, but I wouldn't like let that be like the main, like the biggest factor into like rating a movie. But like I feel like a good way a movie could like execute its themes is by like doing visuals versus just like versus exposition.
Yeah.
Like, cause film is a visual medium, and it could like show its themes through visuals, through sounds. But I hate it when movies just like kind of like literally they say the message in the movie. It kind of like makes it, I don't know, kind of cheap.
Yeah, I got you.
Say. But I think it's just more creative, just to like visualize the theme of the movie versus just saying versus actually just like literally saying what the movie's about. But I mean, that's one aspect of how you create a movie, how well it's executed its themes. But how about you?
So one movie that I like love is it's a Japanese horror movie called Cairo.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've shown it to like several people, and I don't think anybody I've shown it to has really cared for it. But I love it. It's what the movie's about is it's directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. I don't know off the top of my head any other movies he's directed, but it's a horror movie made in 2001. And what it ultimately talks about is like it's like a techno-humanist movie where the idea of the movie is like the fear that technology in 2001 had evolved to be so complex that humans couldn't fully account for what it could do.
Yeah.
On top of that, it integrated that with the idea that as technology allowed people to like communicate more easily, like digitally communicate more easily, ultimately society became like has become more disconnected. And I love that movie because I think it explains that idea without it explains that idea in so many different ways very well. Like you could I mean, if you make like a documentary, you could just kind of like you could spew it out as like exposition, just through narration. But the movie doesn't really have any. It has some, but the movie doesn't communicate this idea primarily through the dialogue. It does it through like camera moves and editing and framing of shots. Like a lot of times Kurosawa, he frames shots to where like none of the characters are close to each other, and that just like over time kind of gets under your skin and you feel kind of alone, which is what he's trying to talk about.
Exactly.
And there's points even where like the camera has like independent camera moves where it kind of like the camera moves in a way that telegraphs where the actors are going to move. Like the camera will move to turn to whatever is the next thing to focus on, and then like a few seconds later the actor will then come into frame and go to that thing.
Yeah.
And I love that movie, and I think it's incredibly well made because of how well it manages to communicate those ideas. And I guess this would be in relation to like how much the movie actually touches you in some way, right?
Yeah.
Like, because ultimately a movie can, I guess where that could be kind of a moot point is a movie could really, really effectively communicate a really abstract or arbitrary idea that isn't really relatable, you know? I can't unfortunately think of like movies off the top of my head that are like that. For some reason I keep thinking, I'm thinking of Brazil, but I don't think Brazil was specifically trying to, I don't know. I'd have to rewatch Brazil to see if he was trying to make any specific points, but that's one where like it's so incredibly bizarre that. I guess one would be like Sorry to Bother You. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
So that movie I think does a really good job for a while of talking about like making like social points, like talking about culture, and then it goes a little off the rails by the end of the movie.
Oh yeah.
And
that Minotaur thing?
you can't help but feel like, yeah, spoilers. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend you watch it because I think the acting is really good, and the editing is it's really kinetic. It's like the movie I feel like moves quite fast. But there's a point in the movie where it starts to get a little abstract. And by the end of the movie, I'm not entirely convinced that what's on screen is related to what was originally talked about.
You just gotta watch it. Just watch it.
Maybe that was the intention. I don't know. I don't know. I kind of ultimately judged that movie's overall quality based on like how well it managed to communicate stuff, and I thought like the third act of that movie didn't really effectively communicate a whole lot of what it originally set up.
Yeah, it almost became like a different movie in itself.
It almost like directly spewed like animal rights points later on, but I think the movie like sets you up to feel like rightfully so that it's like a movie about like today's society, and then that is completely unrelated to that, even if that also equally not equally but also sufficiently communicates those ideas, you know. One area of film where this comes into play is like book adaptations. Like it's kind of polarizing whether or not fans of like a universe like movies when they're adapted from books. Like the one that I think of is like Harry Potter. Those books are really big.
Or Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and so ultimately like a pretty good amount of the content in the books has to be removed for the movies to work. Because otherwise they'd be very, very long. Yeah. For me, I don't judge. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to cut. I'm just gonna say this real quick. For me, I think. Like now, granted, I don't read a lot of books because I have the attention span of like a squirrel. But when I was watching the Harry Potter movies, I wasn't concerned with how closely they like stayed faithful to like plot points of the books. More so, the movies established their own themes and universe, sort of. And overall, how well did they adhere to that and flesh them out, you know? What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say like just so much you could like fit in a movie. They can't fit everything in a book into a movie.
Yeah.
So obviously there's gonna be things that you can't, show in the movie. But I just feel like sometimes you can't compare a book to a movie, cause like when you read a book, there's no images. It's just words. So it's you imagining. Like what's going on, like how the characters look, how the setting looks. It's just your imagination at work.
Yeah.
So when you watch a movie, it's not really your imagination at work, it's the director's imagination everywhere because it's there. I mean, yes, it's someone else's like ideas, obviously the author's ideas of the story, but it's the director's like vision of how they perceive their story from their point of view. So when you watch a movie, it's the director's view of the story, not your view of the story. And also, like, obviously, there's things you can't include in a movie because it's so much stuff in the book you can't show. So obviously, they're gonna have to cut off some things. But at the end of the day, you know, I really don't think people should like compare books to movies because people always say, "Oh, well, in the book, you know, they said this and that, but in the movie they didn't show that." But at the end of the day, like, there's so much you could fit in a movie, and it's the director's vision of the story.
Yeah.
Their point of view of the story, how they see the story. But
I agree with you, except for one circumstance, and that is where the production, through whatever medium, or through whatever like method of communication, specifically says that they are going to be this faithful to the source material.
yeah,
Then I think you judge the movie or the TV show based on that.
yeah.
Not exclusively, but that's much more heavily considered in that case. And that leads into the last question I have, which is, do you have a specific opinion on historical fact or historical fiction and taking creative license to combine the two in movies?
What do you mean by historical fact and historical fiction?
Well, a recent example, one that I was looking up was Alan Parker's Mississippi Burning, because I like that movie a lot, and I'll have to, if I can find this article, I'll link it in the description. I found another one that's not the one I was thinking of, but it's an interesting read, because that movie was really controversial when it came out. But the one that I'm thinking of that happened recently was, I think it was a movie called Patriots Day with Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about the Boston Marathon bombing.
Yeah.
A lot of people were frustrated that movie focused on a fictional character. Like, Mark Wahlberg's character supposedly isn't real.
Yeah.
I haven't actually seen the movie. This sounds dumb. I'm talking about like a bunch of movies that I haven't seen. But I read into that movie because, again, it seemed like there was like some points of contention. And supposedly people were frustrated that, like, Wahlberg wasn't based on a real person.
Yeah.
And people were frustrated, like, we should be like honoring like the people who were really there to help.
Okay.
Whereas they focused on this character and like his family, like his family life, like how him being a cop in that situation like puts like the stresses like as a result of having to respond to that attack, and how those relate to like his family dynamic and that kind of thing.
So you're asking, like, is it wrong for like to create a fictional character like in a real setting, kind of thing?
Yeah, do you think so?
I mean, I don't think so, because, I mean, one, it's a movie, it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
You know, even like the most historical accurate movie ever made, I don't know what it could be, but like there's always going to be some historical inaccuracies in a movie. But at the end of the day, a movie's job is to entertain people.
Yeah.
So obviously there's be some, you know, Hollywood elements in a movie. But also the director could like include real life events such as the Boston Marathon to like convey messages maybe about like terrorism, how the U.S. views terrorists, or just, you know, just themes like that. So I feel like it's good of both sides to, like, you know, obviously tell a message through the historical events and make it entertaining by including a fake character, because obviously a lot of things in real life are not very entertaining. Because I bet you like the cops or like life in general is very bland. Well, it's not. No, life's not bland, but like, you know, like life in movies are very elevated. People want to see things that are like not average. So obviously they're gonna make fake characters, but like, I feel like the real life character, whoever the story is based on, wasn't as interesting as the movie itself, probably.
Yeah.
But I mean,
you're talking about in the case of Patriots Day specifically?
Well, I mean, trying to think of like another movie, probably like.
Well, Richard Jewell, the Clint Eastwood movie that came out.
Yeah.
I know that was one.
Saving Private Ryan.
Well, I don't think any of them are real, are they?
I know, like the story itself was real. Like, you know, a group of soldiers had to like rescue another soldier because his brothers died, but they just changed like the characters' names and like just add a little different backstory to them.
Huh? I didn't actually know that. I thought that was an entirely historical fiction.
But
historical faction.
No.
I think ultimately movies are like, they're about movies are like about the feels, right? Like
Yeah.
I think ultimately what a movie is going to convey is a feeling more than anything. Like I think there's better sources of information, like factual information, than watching any movie.
Just watch a documentary
That's-
or something.
exactly.
Or like read a book.
Yeah, I think a documentary is a perfect place to like adhere strictly to facts, because I think that's like the definition of a documentary. I don't know, but I think it is like it's something related to like it's like a video log of actual facts of like an event, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think it matters, and this I guess it kind of relates to the second question. I don't think it matters so much if the movie strictly adheres to, like, if a movie's trying to be based off of a specific event, if they strictly adhere to everything that happened, if they manage to effectively convey like the feeling overall of like people involved in that event.
Yeah.
You know, like if the movie's really good at like putting you in the moment, and even if the moment you're in isn't real, if it gets you to feel, to empathize with people who were really there, who aren't in the movie, because again it's like not a real moment in my example. If it helps you to empathize with people who are really there, I think that's what's most important.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I guess that kind of relates back to the second question, like in the case of like adaptations.
Yeah.
I think generally it's rare. I think that a movie or show is adapted from a piece of literature and like the feel of it is entirely different than the literature.
Mm-hmm.
I can't actually think of examples. I mean, I know Stephen King famously didn't like Kubrick's rendition of The Shining.
Oh yeah, I've read about that.
But I don't know how far off it is from like the overall feel of the book. But like, I think in the case of like the Harry Potter movies, I think those retain like the mysticism of the whole experience through like Harry Potter, even if there was a lot of moments that were like cut out, you know. I'm not entirely. That doesn't really specifically relate to like intentional fallacy, but I do think it's like an interesting idea. Let me see if I have anything else on here. Do you have anything specifically that's like on your mind at the moment?
About intentional fallacy?
Yeah, because I got like one more point.
No, go ahead with your point. Go ahead with your point.
Well, when it comes to like how you consider the intentional fallacy in like a practical sense, I don't think anybody's really gonna like ever criticize somebody for having like I think most reasonable people aren't gonna be like, your opinion of this is dumb.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're reasonable, you think, okay, well maybe your life experience or your perspective lends you to analyze it in that particular way.
Yeah.
You know, one example, I don't think in the case of like a discussion, I think it'd like inhibit the overall evolution of like the conversation or what you could learn if you just like shut down somebody's opinion of a movie because you think it's so far off from what you're pretty sure the director meant by it.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think there should be some objectivity when like just watching a movie, or should it be like all subjective? Because obviously movies are like, for example, like a painting. Like for example, like I just say I had a white canvas, and it's like a lot of paintings like this, like in museums. Like it's literally like a white canvas and like a yellow square, and that's like portrayed in a museum. People like say that's art.
Yeah.
Versus someone who actually made like a very beautiful painting, almost like a Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
But it's not considered art. It's not in a museum. But people say that the yellow square is like art. It's like, people say like that's a beautiful thing, but like, is it really? Like, it's just a yellow square versus someone who like literally made a beautiful thing, but it's not getting the recognition of someone who just made a yellow square. I don't know, just like the idea of just like.
No, that's an interesting point. Like, because that could maybe represent, that person who, is like, if a person is frustrated that the person who, put the square on the wall versus the person who used the brush for a long time,
Like,
I think like they are like not on like equal planes as far as like absolute effort goes. Like that is like a determinant of like how much recognition they should get. I think that represents maybe. Not in a bad or a good way, just like in an absolute sense, it's a representation of their personality.
Like, to someone that that line in a white canvas could be like the greatest thing ever, but like, is it really?
Yeah. like you're talking about like objectivity in film. I think the only times, I think the closest we get to objectivity in films, and we're talking about like philosophy, is if we have a frame of reference, like if the movie if the production specifically states that this movie is intended to be like very accurate in this regard, or it's gonna make you feel this particular way or something.
Yeah.
Then like that's where you can be like relatively objective. You subjectively objective, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. In philosophy, I don't know if you can find like objectivity. The last thing that I was thinking of, I love The Pianist by Roman Polanski. I think when I was looking at the some different reviews, Ebert said that this is like quoting him. Perhaps the impassive quality reflects what Polanski wants to say by showing Spielman, who was played by Adrian Brody, the main character, as a survivor. Basically, if you want background context, Adrian Brody plays Vladislav Spielman. I think that's somewhat close to how you say his name. He was a pianist who was alive during the Holocaust, and he was like put into work camps, and through various different events managed to survive the duration of like his time there and ultimately be free. Spielman, and so Ebert says, by showing Spielman as a survivor but not a fighter or a hero, as a man who does all he can to save himself but would have died without enormous good luck and the kindness of a few non-Jews, Polanski is reflecting his own deepest feelings that he survived but need not have, and that his mother died and left a wound that never healed. Michael Wilmington of Chicago Tribune says that the film is the best dramatic feature I've seen on the Holocaust experience. So powerful a statement on war, inhumanity, and art's redemption that it may signal Polanski's artistic redemption. Those are two very, very distinctly different interpretations, I think, of the film. Mm-hmm. It might not be like their whole interpretation of the film. I mean, it's objectively not, because it's paraphrased.
Yeah.
Like that might just be like that might not be their interpretation of the entire film, but like those two things represent like both of those critics discerning different meanings from the film. Like even a movie like that, like here's an interesting point. Do you have like a different tolerance? If somebody comes up with like a sorry, I just hit the mic. Hopefully that didn't sound really loud. That's like the one thing I said not to do and I did it. I'm sorry. If you're discussing like meaning of a movie, and well, I guess real quick, the reason why this is significant is because like it's not entirely clear what Polanski intended. I think it's almost safer to say that perhaps he intended meaning, like the intended meaning was more along the lines of Wilmington, which was like a statement on war, inhumanity, art's redemption. Because if he went through that whole experience, he probably wanted to like articulate the feeling of going through that as much as he can, which is extremely stressful to say the least.
Yeah. And
like life changing in by all accounts. But it seems like you could derive also from what Ebert says that like it could be a statement on how ultimately like humanity can prevail, because he survived with the help of like even during like all the dark, hopeless times. And I recommend this movie through and through. It's an absolute incredible movie. I think Adrian Brody is, I think out of the 2000s, out of the 21st century, I think so far he's the most deserving Best Actor winner thus far in the last 20 years, I'll say.
I don't know. I gotta say, I've never seen the movie.
Dude, it's really, really good. Highly recommend. There's a scene with it's like a can of cucumbers. I think it's cucumbers or pickles. But dude, that scene, I was like, that's it.
Better than Daniel Day-Lewis in Derby Blood.
He's good. But dude, the pickles, I'm telling you, or whatever. The can of, I think it was cucumbers. But dude, you gotta watch it. It's so amazing. I think as far as Day-Lewis goes, I think this is a tangent, but I think Day-Lewis's best performance is In the Name of the Father. Have you seen that?
I gotta see that one.
Oh, that was Chris Curtis, maybe? I don't know if that was his name, but he worked with him on The Boxer, and
I've always wanted to see that one.
I'd like to as well. He also worked with him on My Left Foot.
Oh.
Yeah, my mom saw that. She's I haven't seen that. I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see The Boxer, but it's one of only 2 directors or 3 who have worked with him for more than like one production.
I know Paul Thomas Anderson worked with him for There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread.
Scorsese worked with him on
Gangs of New York and something Innocence?
Age of Innocence.
Age of Innocence.
Yeah, and then this guy did 3 movies, so it's kind of like a rare group. I can't imagine that you like if you're discussing a movie with somebody, you're probably not going to like shoot them down if they have like if they can like thoroughly articulate why they feel that way about it, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're like so confident that that's not what the director meant, it's like you consider it anyways, you know? Like you're like, "Oh, you know what? That's like you like at least for me I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea." And I start thinking about it, you know? It's like in a practical sense, like if you're actually having a conversation and you're talking about stuff that would be related to the intentional fallacy, you're probably not going to say things like that is a pointless thing to talk about because it is so far removed from what they meant you to take away from the movie, you know. Yeah.
Intentional fallacy.
Any final comments, sir? We recorded this in a car, by the way. So there was like a plane flying over and a motorcycle at the same place. I thought it was a helicopter, and I was looking for a helicopter.
Yeah, we're just a little nervous. It's our first time.
Yeah, and this car, it's hot in this car. You're fucking warm.
It's already dark outside.
It is dark. It was kind of getting dark, but now it's really dark, and we're in like a murdery parking lot.
The Office Max just closed.
Yeah, we stayed here for the entirety of them being open to being closed. Not like the whole day, but they were open when we got here, and we watched them basically close. So that was interesting. I've never done that. Yeah. Oh, I guess. Well, you know what? We'll let this up. We'll let this roll. I was gonna say like our plan was to also talk about like movies we had seen recently.
What movies have you seen recently this past week or weeks?
You know, not a bunch. I told you I saw.
Or during this whole pandemic, have you like seen anything good?
What? So I told you I saw La La Land. I actually just like 2 days ago I watched Strays, which was Vin Diesel's movie.
Vin Diesel.
It is what he came out with after Saving Private Ryan. I think anyway.
Strays?
Yeah. Wait, Saving Private Ryan came out in like 94, right? Or was it 99? I think Spielberg might have seen Strays and cast him from that, but Strays came out in 97 and it's his directorial debut.
Who, Vin Diesel?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember reading actually that Spielberg actually like always tells him to be a director because I guess you could like see like directive like attributes in him.
Yeah, you could tell it was made by somebody who had never made a movie, but the editing and the dialogue was like really good, I thought. It had this characteristic of like when the characters start talking, you're not entirely sure what it's gonna be about eventually, but then like it smoothly turns into like the main kind of touch point of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's like Vin Diesel's character, his strained relationship with his mom, and how that's like affecting how he like lives his life in general.
Yeah.
I would check it out. It's
Strays?
Yeah, it's an interesting watch. But man, he's a charismatic fellow, isn't he?
Who, Vin Diesel?
Yeah, I think so. The irony of that is he's like the most like level-headed like monotone guy.
Has he ever directed any other movies?
I don't know. Let me look that up really quick. But yeah, if you guys are like bored and looking for something to watch, check out Strays. It's not too bad. I mentioned Lake Mungo. That's like one of my all-time favorite horror movies now. It's like that was an example where like looking into the production really kind of blew my mind because they had seemingly no written dialogue for the movie.
Really?
Like all the dialogue in the movie is ad-libbed by like unknown actors, and it's phenomenal. If you can find it, because it's kind of rare. Yeah, it's 1997. Why I could just look up Vin Diesel. Why did I do this? Well, let's go here. His name is Rick. Nothing else, just Rick. Let's see if he's directed anything else.
Isn't it crazy how he got paid millions and millions of dollars to be in Guardians of the Galaxy just to say one word? Groot.
Did he even do motion
Anybody
capture?
could have done that.
He also was an Iron Giant though too.
What the hell, man?
He was the Iron Giant. He, as far as actual full-length movies goes, he has not directed anything else. Vin, you should direct another movie, man. That was a good one, I thought. I'm excited for the next Fast Furious movie. F9. They just like, I love how like they're trying to come up with like different ways to like write that title. Like it was like Fast and Furious, or it was The Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious. Then it was just Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Then it was just Fast and Furious, or Fast and the Furious.
And
Then it was-
Fast 5.
Then Fast and Furious 6. Then Furious 7. Then Fate of the Furious.
Oh, Fate with the 8.
Yeah. Now it's F9. I don't know what 9's gonna be about. Oh, battery's getting low. What about you? What have you seen recently?
Honestly, I should have watched more movies during this whole pandemic.
So should I have.
I've just been rewatching movies. I should watch more movies. I should be watching like new movies, like from. That's my problem. I tend to like watch old movies I haven't seen, like old films. I should like
Yes.
watch more new films just to get an idea like what's the landscape, now. But
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of TV shows though. The Last Dance, Michael Jordan.
Oh, I gotta see that
Documentary?
still. I haven't seen that.
I highly recommend
I
it.
think I should hit the mic.
Anyone who, I feel like anybody can relate to, whether you're like an artist, athlete, a cook, a chef, just anyone, just like the idea of just to like persevere through dark times. Like for example, like Michael Jordan, who when he first got drafted by the Bulls, they were a shitty team. They were like known as like the cocaine circus because like the athletes in the team were like do coke
Yeah.
like in between games, and he turned a shitty team into a dynasty. And, obviously his father died. Having to play through a championship with his father's death,
Yeah.
or playing through a flu game. Just persevering, man, just in general. But I highly recommend it to anyone to watch. And I recently watched another TV show on HBO. It's a miniseries called "I Know This Much Is True," starring Mark Ruffalo, directed by what's his face, Derek Cianfrance. He also directed Blue Valentine, The Place Beyond the Pines.
I really like that movie.
But I really highly recommend I Know This Much Is True. It's a 6-episode miniseries on HBO with Mark Ruffalo. It's very sad, very depressing, but it gets you. It's very gut-wrenching, but highly recommend it. But I've been watching Sopranos though recently. I've always, heard about it. My stepdad always tells me about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally took the time to actually watch it. I actually ran through the whole first season in 2 days. Great show. R.I.P. to James Gandolfini. But that's what I've been watching. A lot of TV shows, but I gotta watch more movies though, man.
Same.
I've been slacking on that during this whole pandemic.
I'm kind of like you too. I haven't, since theaters are closed, I haven't really seen any new releases.
Yeah, I do every week. Me and my girlfriend we were go to the movies every week, but now it's just But that shouldn't be an excuse though, because we have Netflix, we have DVDs, we have
This is true.
all this access. We have time, to catch up on some good stuff.
Oh, I saw Hard 8.
Hard 8. Oh, what you think about that?
It was a little rough, I think, but it made me realize why I like PTA specifically, Paul Thomas Anderson. Why I really like how he shoots movies. It's all seemingly or predominantly wide angle lenses, and you can see you have a great depth of field, and you can see a lot of the screen. I love the way that looks, and the way characters just interact in that space. I think everything should be shot on wide angle, personally.
Everything.
Everything.
Every film shot on IMAX.
Fisheye only.
Oh god.
Hey, help you to focus on a character. Yeah, check out this much I know is true. Is that what you said?
I know this.
I know this much is true.
I know this much is true.
Okay, I butchered the shit out of that. Check out that. Check out Lake Mungo. Check out Strays.
Check out Last Dance. Michael Jordan.
Yeah, check out Two Popes as well if you haven't seen that. That's a really well shot, well acted movie. Even if you're not you don't particularly connect with the top the subject matter because it's about Christianity. John, God, I forgot his name again. Anthony Hopkins in it, but his co-star, they kill that movie, and the directing is so good. Yeah, check all that out, and anybody who is watching this on YouTube, please leave comments below with any thoughts you have, and we will do something in the sort of responding to them in some way. Might be a follow-up podcast, or at least just responding to the comments. But yeah, if anybody's watching this, thank you so much, and that it?
I think so, but thank you for listening. Hope you come back again. We'll be coming out with some more stuff. Just give us some time. It's our first one.
Yeah, we have 99 more episodes planned.
Oh shit.
Yeah, no, just kidding. But hopefully we will be back soon. I'm Matt.
And I'm Matthew.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.